Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well. Another Sunday Perspective show as we move into May, early part of May 2024. The year is flying by. We're more than a third of the year done, and hope everybody's doing well. I know I am recording this slightly before Sunday. I'm going to be doing some traveling for the next 2 weeks, so I'm getting a little ahead of some of these shows. Aaron and I, sometimes when a lot of travel's coming up, we'll try and record some shows ahead of time, and this is one that I'm recording a little bit ahead of Sunday, but not a timely specific show, so that'll be okay if you're listening along. What I thought I would do is haven't really done a sort of like career advice show in a little while, and got to thinking, there's a lot of weird kind of uncertainty in the market right now. You've got some companies that are still doing some layoffs in terms of that. The economy is still, it's stronger, but it's a little uncertain in spots, and you've got an election year in the United States, which, causes some people to be a little more cautious than they usually are, and just a whole lot of stuff going on. But you've also got the undertow of a lot of companies are investing in things like AI and some of the new technologies. And so, we've always had people listen to the show that are thinking about forward-looking things, forward-looking technologies, forward-looking companies. And oftentimes, they'll start thinking, well, maybe I should jump to one of these new companies. Maybe my company is doing something new. I should look to get involved with that. And that's not unusual. But I thought what I would do is dig into a little bit of the, things to kind of, have as a mental checklist. If you're thinking about taking some new job, thinking about going to work for some new group, maybe a new company, maybe a manager or a boss that you've never worked for before. So what I did is I went ahead and made sort of a checklist based on some of my experiences, some of Aaron's experiences, both good and bad. Aaron and I have both seen our fair share of jobs, but also seen our fair share of goods and bads. We've made some good decisions, some bad decisions, and things in between. So I thought what I would do on today's show is dig into that a little bit, kind of give some perspective on some things to just kind of have in the back of your mind as you're evaluating people, evaluating companies, and evaluating, what might be the next, the right next move for you, whether that's in the near term or long term or something like that. So we'll get to that right after the break. Welcome back to the Cloudcast. I'm, as always, your host, Brian Gracely. And as as I mentioned at the top of the show, I want to dive a little bit into just sort of a mental checklist, sort of a based on experience, but also based on just, having worked in a lot of different roles with a lot of different types of people, both in good situations and unfortunately some bad situations. But I want to pass along some things because, like I said, we're in somewhat of an uncertain time in the tech industry. There are pockets that are doing very well. There are other pockets that are, unfortunately, a little bit unstable. And this is one of those times when people start to make some decisions. They start to look at their environment and they go, should I stay where I am? Does it feel like something I can do for a while? Is it something I enjoy doing? Or do you feel like, there's some uncertainty in what you're doing, or maybe you're unfortunately, in a situation in which you got to find something new, and you're starting to look around and you're going, okay, I'm evaluating technologies, I'm evaluating companies, I'm evaluating opportunities for myself, whether that's, the scope of the job, the title of the job, the people you're going to work with, whatever it might be. So what I did is I made some lists of some things to kind of keep in mind, because a lot of times when you get in the mindset of I'm going to do something new, you sometimes can get a little bit emotional. Maybe you get frustrated with your current job, or you feel like this is the thing I'm in just isn't working right, and I really got to get out of here. And sometimes things will move fast, and sometimes you get some offers, or you talk to some people, or some things come along, and your desire to do something different sometimes overwhelms your ability to be rational, to make kind of clear-headed, clear-eyed decisions. And depending on, who you have as sort of your circle of friends, your circle of trust, you may or may not be able to sort of bounce things off of them. So anyways, feel free to use this as sort of a checklist or a mental kind of, way of kind of going through some things to consider. Obviously it's not by any means complete. It is, as robust as we can make it, in a 30-minute show, but also everybody's experience differs from person to person, from location to location. So this is really based on kind of some experience that both Aaron and I have have seen over the years, as well as some people that we've obviously talked to and trust and things like that. So, I'll kind of walk through the list. The list is in no specific order, but it is kind of some things to think about. So the first kind of cut that I made is, as you are looking at a company, obviously you're going to evaluate the company, you're going to evaluate their technology or the situation, the location, the pay, all those sort of things. But one of the things you're really going to evaluate is who's going to be your manager, who's going to be your management team that you're going to work with. Because, while you may be going to work for a great company, you may also be going to work for, your day-to-day work, the things that are going to be the most impactful to what you do, that have the most influence over what you do is oftentimes just going to be your immediate manager or your immediate management chain. So the first couple of things that you're going to want to look at are kind of manager specific. Are they a first-time manager? Have they managed teams before? Have they had a long run as sort of an individual contributor? Were they very good at what they did, and they're now getting into management? Or have they been managing teams for a while? And if they've been managing teams, have they always managed sort of one type of team? Are they being asked now to manage more than one team, or are they simply managing one team? Have they ever managed distributed teams? So if you are not all in the same city, if you're not all going to get together face to face, if it's going to be a distributed team, as many teams are, have they done that in the past? What's their style with distributed teams? So you want to kind of figure those things out. The next thing you want to start to figure out is, what's been their level of management, right? Have they been managing a product? Have they been managing, a process for an organization? Or have they really had a higher level capability in terms of having to manage what we call a P&L, or the profit and loss? So have they essentially been the manager of the entire business? And this is really where you're kind of trying to figure out, how much of their background is technically based, how much of it's business based. And the reason I highlight that is we've talked a lot about, the last 10 plus years or so in our industry has been very much dominated by, sort of zero interest rate, or ZIRP, in terms of, there was a lot of money floating around. While there was a lot of interesting ideas, those ideas weren't always held to great accountability. And so you're really trying to get a sense of, does this person, have experience managing, whether it's technology, but more importantly, the business. They have the ability, and success in managing business successfully. Have they been held accountable to doing that? Or have they really just sort of lived in this world in which there was kind of unlimited amounts of money, maybe a lack of accountability, lack of measurement into what was successful, and so forth? So you're looking at those types of things. The second thing you're kind of looking at is, have they had significant success in the past? And if so, what was their role in that success? So, this is where you're looking at, has this person been managing a successful team for a while? Are they starting a newer group, and in the past they had managed a previous group to success? And then you're really kind of asking, what was their role in that? Were they leading the team? Were they, part of a leadership group? Were they just on the team, and sort of taking credit for the success of the group? And again, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. You're just trying to get a sense of, is the role that they're now in something that they've done before? Are they going to have a huge learning curve, as well as you coming on new and being new? So you're trying to measure all those things. And again, there's no sort of perfect answer or no exact answer, but you're really kind of looking for, in your mind, how many of those types of things, would you put as sort of, green, in terms of red, yellow, and green? How many of them look like sort of yellow or red, potential red flags? And how many of them are kind of unknowns, right? So, this person has been doing this for a while. They've been doing certain things well, but, there's some unknowns in terms of, hey, they're taking on some new capability, or they're stepping away from, something they've done for a while, and they're doing something new. But maybe they have, excellent backing from the upper management team, or they have excellent funding for a period of time, and those types of things. So you're really kind of mentally kind of going through it, and you're not going to get everything right, but you're really kind of looking for how many of those things are green, how many of them are yellow, and how many of them are sort of red. And then you're also kind of in your mind saying, which things are the most important to you, right? Which ones do you think are the most important in terms of, them supporting you as somebody who's working with them, in terms of if they're leading the team, do they have the skills that you think are going to be necessary to help them lead that team? Okay, so that's sort of the first pass you might make in terms of looking at, the type of people that you might go and work for. The next thing I sort of listed is, sort of leadership skills, team building skills, execution skills, and then again, sort of red flags and green flags and so forth. So one of the first things that you really want to look for if you're joining some group that you've never necessarily worked with before, maybe it's a new company, it's a new group, is the group you're going to work for sort of an established group? Meaning, one of the things that you'll see a lot in the technology industry is groups of people will sort of move around together. So maybe one person tends to be the lead over and over again. They might have their number two or their number three person that they've always taken with them. It might be a combination of both technical people and business people. It might be all technical people, but you're trying to get a sense of, am I walking into a team that's kind of established in terms of whether they've done it at the place where you're going to be or they did it somewhere else? Do they have a set of norms, a set of behaviors, a set of processes that are really well established within them? They all sort of know each other's personality. They know each other's family. They sort of know how each other works. Or is this something that is sort of coming together? Think of it as like, when sports teams draft new people, right? They're having to figure out, okay, will they fit into the team and so forth? Yes, they might be skilled in certain things, but have they worked together? So you're trying to figure that out. And this is one of those things where, again, there isn't necessarily right or wrong, but you're ultimately trying to figure out like how will you be able to fit into that team? Do they accept new people? How do they deal with new people? And really, what is the culture of that group? Because oftentimes that culture is again, for as successful as they've been or, had flaws or whatever, that's probably going to be the culture of the team that you're going to have to adapt to. And the thing to keep in mind is it's very rare that somebody new comes in and changes the culture of something that's well established. So you kind of want to look at that. Second thing you might want to look at is, has the leader had, and I mentioned this previously, but, have they had previous success? And if so, is the thing that they're now working on a similar type of domain? So for example, like in the tech industry, we often see people that are in networking stay in networking for a long time. And so they might go from company A to company B to company C, but they sort of stay in the domain of, networking. We see this a lot in the storage industry, the storage domain. We see this somewhat in things like monitoring and observability. Those types of companies, oftentimes somebody will build a company, they'll sell the company, and then they'll, 3 or 4 years later, they'll kind of reinvent the company again. And oftentimes they lead those things. So you're kind of trying to figure out, like, is somebody moving from a domain to a similar domain in which, their learning curve of that domain, of the dynamics of those domains, of what's important to customers, what's important in the technology space, or are they really kind of moving into something new? And the expectation is, well, this person is just a great technologist. They're a great business leader. They're going to be able to adapt to whatever that is. So that's something to sort of take a look at, is if they've had previous success, was that a success in a similar domain in which their learning curve will be, not nearly as steep, or are they moving into something new? And then what you're really trying to figure out is, if they're moving to something new, how are they adapting their previous expertise or experience into this new space? Are they assuming that things kind of work the same? Have they done their homework to figure out what's different and unique in the space? And so you're kind of looking for those types of things. And again, no perfect answer, kind of green, yellow, red kind of check boxes you might do. Next thing you may want to look at is, especially if it's a newer group or a group that's forming and growing and so forth, is what motivates the leader, right? How far into their career are they? What motivates them? Are they motivated by, kind of that overwhelming desire to just make customers happy, right? Whoever customer might be. Are they sort of customer obsessed? Are they motivated by money? Are they motivated by sort of fame and awareness, right? They're, sort of ego driven. Are they motivated by, competition? Are they just motivated by, kind of being in the arena, if you will, sort of the old Teddy Roosevelt sort of man in the arena? And this is really important to understand, because not every leader is motivated by the same things. And not every leader, depending on where they are in their career or what the situation is, will be motivated by the same thing. So you really kind of want to get a sense of, what motivates them. Is this a motivation that will last for, a significant period of time? Is this a short-term motivation, right? Are they really just trying to, get back at somebody? Are they Are they angry about some previous situation and they're they're going to be kind of vindictive? And that's, again, not completely out of the ordinary, unusual. So you're really trying to understand, like, what's the motivation for the leader? Because oftentimes that will be the thing that drives the group. And so you're really trying to understand, does their motivation align to the company? Does motivation align to the capabilities within the group, right? If they're motivated by whatever, does the group have the ability to meet those things that will motivate that person, right? So you're trying to understand those things. The next thing I often say is, when you look at a manager, you look at a leader, most of them are really strong at one domain, right? And sometimes they're strong at two, but it's very rare that they're great at a lot of things. And by that, what I mean is they might be technically very proficient. Maybe they were a great engineer at some point in time. They might have great interpersonal skills. They might really be able to sell ice to Eskimos. They might have great market sense and great marketing capabilities. They might be a great storyteller. They might have tremendous financial acumen. Maybe they have a bunch of background in strategy and they're very good at sort of, predicting the future, seeing around corners and so forth. And some of them are just, great kind of executors, right? They're great at operating and being able to run a business, be able to run and operate and execute day in, day out. But the reality is, most people, if you took that list, and there's probably half a dozen other characteristics, they're probably not great at all of them. They're probably very good at one, maybe two of them. They may be sufficient at a couple of others. But what you're really trying to figure out is, do they recognize what their best skills are? Do they recognize what their weaknesses are? And do they have the ability to hire people that augment their skills? Or do they have a tendency to try and hire people that all have sort of the same skills because they feel like, well, my skills are the most important thing, and I want people around me that, can do those things too. So you're hopefully finding a manager or a leader who is very good at one or two of those skills, excellent, world-class at one of those skills. They recognize what those are. Just as importantly, they are willing to hire people that have skills that augment their skills, that fill in the gaps, if you will, fill in where their weaknesses are, and they allow those people to leverage those skills to make the bigger team, the bigger organization better for that, right? So those are some of the things to sort of ask. What are their skills? What do they recognize as their weaknesses? Do they recognize their weaknesses? How do they try and offset those? How do they go about hiring to kind of build completeness within the team? And the last thing that I'll talk about here real quickly is, and I highlighted this a little bit before, but like, does your personality match, right? And this is where it kind of gets into the same way that you're looking at a manager or a leader's motivation, the things that drive them. You really kind of understand, like, well, what drives yourself? Do the things, the ethos, the DNA, the culture of the group, is that well established? And where do you align to that? Because you may look at a company and you may say, oh man, working there would be awesome. That would be the best. They make the best products. They create great experiences for people. But if the things that drive them to be successful and the things that they expect out of people aren't aligned to what you do, you really have to sort of make a decision. You have to go, well, either it's not a fit for me, and that might be the case, right? Like, you might want to work for the best automotive company, but their way that they do things is different than you want to do it, or the best technology company, or the best finance company. Or you really have to tell yourself, I am going to have to get out of my comfort zone. I'm going to have to figure out a way to adapt to this culture, because as an individual, like, don't ever believe anybody who tells you, like, hey, I'm going in there to change things, right? Like, companies inherently, whether they are 20 people or 50 people or 500 or 5,000 people, once they've sort of established who they are, it's very rare that somebody's going to come in and change them, especially an individual, unless you're coming in a situation in which there is a big problem, and they've realized that without change, we're not going to get out of this situation. We're not going to fix the problem. But if you're coming in, that's where you really have to decide, like, I can fit in here with the skills that I have, with the motivations that I have, or you have to say, that's not who I am, but that's who I want to be. That's what I want to motivate me. I want to put myself in that situation. I want to learn from these people. And you need to make yourself, open and somewhat vulnerable to saying that you're going to be uncomfortable for a period of time, and maybe for a long period of time, in order to sort of fit in with where the rest of that culture is. So, again, all these things are useful checklists to look for. You want to look for, again, things that motivate you the right way, culture fit, personality fit. You want to sort of understand where people are in their journey. Are you at a stage in your career when you're expecting certain things that the team's just not going to give you, the opportunity's not going to give you, or they might be able to give it to you in spades, but you're going to have to work 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week. And those are all the things in which, ultimately what you're going to find, and Aaron and I have had this conversation hundreds of times. You're never going to find a job that gives you everything you want. And this is where you really kind of have to say, what are the most important things for me? If I don't have those things, will I be happy? Will I be satisfied? Will I be challenged and motivated? And what are the things that I'm willing to trade off? The things I'm willing to give up? The things that are your red flags versus your green flags? So anyways, like I said, the reason for this week's show is, it does feel like the market is in a little bit of flux. There's probably some good pockets. There's unfortunately, probably some difficult pockets. And there's probably a certain amount of uncertainty that people have in terms of, maybe you had a previous role in which you were part of something that was growing very fast and you really want to capture that again. Maybe you're looking for more stability in your life. Maybe you're looking for a role that, while it might be very hard, is going to allow you to make a lot more money than you're doing now, because that's the thing that has to motivate you. Any of those things are all valid. Maybe you're just simply looking for a change. You want a new challenge. Any of those things are valid. So, like I said, it's worth kind of having a mental checklist. I put a lot of these things listed out in the show notes. There's probably 24 more that are worth thinking about. We'd love to kind of hear your feedback on how you go through the thought process. But I think, the key is look for the green flags, look for sort of the yellow and red flags, make your checklist, figure out what your priorities are. You're not going to find everything in a team or a manager or a group, but find the things that are the most important to you and seek those out. And hopefully, you find something that gives you the majority of what you're looking for, or gives you the one or two things that are the most important to you, and then you realize the other ones aren't that important. So anyways, with that, I'll wrap it up. These are by no means, the only ways to think about stuff, but they're things that Aaron and I have both run into, that, maybe if we had thought about them a little bit more or evaluated them better, maybe we wouldn't made some of the mistakes we made in our career. In some cases, we thought we made good decisions and we got very lucky, and we were on great teams with great managers and great leaders and things like that. Other cases, we thought we had, made very good decisions and the circumstances didn't work out. The economy changed. The company went in a different direction. So, you do the best you can at the time with the best information you have in front of you at the time. You'll never have all the information. You'll never have a perfect situation, but you want to do the best you can with the information you have. So hopefully this is, somewhat of a useful checklist. Again, we're always willing to listen when folks say, hey, we're considering this or we're considering that. Do you have any suggestions? So always happy to sort of happy to share some of our experiences with you if you want. Our details are in the show notes, show at thecloudcast.net, or any of the ways that we can find us on social media. Feel free to hit us up. So with that, I'll wrap it up. I hope you all are having a good May, starting off the month. April showers bring May flowers. So hopefully the weather is getting good in your part of the world. And with that, I'll wrap it up. We will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.